in the building. And guess what? Y'all know what I'm doing. Y'all know where I'm at. I am live on Heat 100 Radio. So make sure you go check in. Tune in to Heat 100 Radio airtime.pro. All right. You should be hearing my voice right about now. But anyway, let's get to what we need to get to. If not, you know where you can get me on Instagram at SportsRap CEO, where I'm also live right there streaming right now. So I got some scores for you guys from yesterday, some Major League Baseball stuff. Not really the greatest, but this is where we are in our sports world. So, Major League Baseball. Cardinals fall to the Rangers 8-1. The Red Sox get by the Braves 3-1. White Sox fall to the Orioles 3-2. The Brewers get by the Phillies 5-2. The Blue Jays beat the A's 8-4. The Rockies fall to the Mets 5-3. The Guardians double up the Angels 4-2. And the Giants also double up the Marlins 4-2. Tigers blank the Royals 1-0. By the same score, the Astros blank the Rays 1-0. The Reds fall to the Cubs 7-3. Mariners get by the Twins 2-1. The Diamondbacks get by the Nationals 3-1. And the Pirates fall to the Padres 6-4. The Yankees beat the Dodgers 7-3. I missed one score for y'all in the WNBA, but nonetheless, the Sun fall to the Liberty 152. The Sparks fall to the Mercury 85-80. The Aces 75 and the Storm 70. And I missed that one score first. I'm not even going to tell y'all that. Shout outs to my guy, Richard Drummond. Rad 211. Rad, my guy. Hope everything is all good with you. Haven't talked to you in a while. I haven't heard from you in a while. So I'm hoping that everything is going well. Leah Miranda Lindsay, 62. Thanks for tuning in as well. So, folks, we're going to get right to what we need to get to today, okay? We got NBA finals are set, all right? Finals are set in two sports. The NBA finals are set, and we also know that the NHL Stanley Cup finals are set. Great. Glad to hear that, Rich. You're definitely glad to hear that everything is all good. So, on the Stanley Cup side, the NHL, for all of my NHL fans, Game 1 Wednesday, Panthers and the Oilers. All right. More importantly, and what I want to get to, because there's some stories that I've seen this morning that I have to talk to. I got to talk a little bit about. All right. The NBA finals are also set. Pacers and the Thunder. So for me, it's somewhat exciting, a little bit happy because there's somebody different in the finals. It's not the usual teams that we expect in the finals. So we kind of got back to, some things. All right. So here's the thing. This is what I want to talk to you about. Who do you like in the finals? All right. So for me, before I get to the other topic I want to get to, and it's kind of a funny one, and I'm kind of thinking some things, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking when we get to that point. Yeah, me too, Rich. Happy new teams are definitely in the finals. So, for me, from what I've seen in the semis from both of these teams, the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, I am swinging towards the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the NBA Finals this year. When we went back, when these two finals started, when they were playing their opponents in that team. Yeah, they blew that, Rich. They could have had Halliburton, but they blew it. So we got to take Tyrese. But I actually like Tyrese. I like our Tyrese better. And it's a long conversation, but I definitely like, our Tyrese better. But I saw and I felt going into the semis that whoever won the West would win the NBA Finals, and this is where I still am. All right, so I'm thinking that the OKC Thunder are going to win the finals. A few things that I saw since we were talking OKC, and that's who I think is going to take this. So people ask me at work today, ask me how many games, 6 games, 7 games. I'm not going to give you a number of games. I just like OKC to win it. Okay. And you might understand it more when I get to telling you some of the things I saw about the Indiana Pacers this year. What's going on with them right now. So anyway, what happens? Excuse me for 1 second, 1 second. All right, 1 second here. All right, so what's going on with OKC? Right, I don't understand what their issue is, anything. But here we go. What is happening with OKC? They definitely, we've seen that they definitely can score the ball. We know that. That's a given. But like Rich just chimed in, my guy said, okay, defense is tough. I've been saying this throughout the playoffs for the Oklahoma City Thunder when I actually got enough time to actually watch them at length, if you will. So I feel like, again, their offense is their offense. They're going to score the ball. They're going to do what they do. But I think, and it showed that when they want to, when they get to it, they can get down and dirty on that defensive end. And like my guy Rich said, their defense is tough. I do also like the fact, and I said this to some people, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying. So what I said to some people was, after watching Shea throughout this playoffs, the reigning league MVP currently, right? What I said was about him, I said, well, he gives me flashes of Kobe and MJ mannerisms on the court. All right, now, here it is. I said mannerisms. So I'm not saying that he resembles them per se. I'm saying some of his mannerisms on the court remind me a little bit of Kobe and MJ. One, for example, that I pointed out to a lot of people, I said he had a not so great game to be the star of that team. But he bounces back with a huge game every time, just about every time that happens. So it leads me to believe that he's a student of the game. He goes and he understands what was going on. He picks it up and he makes the adjustments. He makes those changes within himself when he gets back on the court against that same team. I also feel like if we had to have a slight advantage, I think OKC has a slight advantage where they have what I would like to say is an X factor. And for me, right now, that X factor, and this is for me going back to the Denver series, for me, that X factor for OKC is Alex Caruso, a veteran that has won a championship, but plays well on both ends of the floor, especially on that defensive end of the floor. He went and guarded Joker. Yep, there you go. I appreciate that, Rich, for agreeing with that. After somebody did understand what I meant when I said that. But Caruso, for me, is the X factor for the OKC Thunder. I don't see too much bad there. Like I said, he came in in the Denver series and he ended up guarding Joker, and he did a decent job. Right? I mean, he was out. He was undersized, whatever, but he still did his job on the defensive end. He got under his skin. He got him a little frustrated. He got him thinking a lot more than what he usually does. He got him to start complaining to the referees about things. So, in my opinion, now he has done his job. So, for me, Alex Caruso is going to be that X factor, I think, for the OKC Thunder. I also have, not to say that Indiana is old, but OKC has a different kind of hunger about them right now that I noticed. And when you have that kind of hunger, you are hard to beat. And again, I'm not saying that you can't be beat, but you are very difficult. You make yourself very difficult to beat when you have this type of burning hunger that they have. Looking at the other side, the Indiana Pacers, they got some stuff. They can get down and dirty on the defensive end too. I think though another slight advantage for OKC might be their athleticism as opposed to the athleticism on Indiana. You know, they've got Halliburton, they got Siakam. Very, very good. Both all-stars, but they're not very athletic. Okay. Some of their other guys are good. They're solid in what they do, but they're not very athletic. When you look at that Indiana roster, you could argue that the most athletic player on that roster is probably Obi Toppin. You could argue. I'm not saying it definitely, but you could argue that. Okay. But one of the other things that is somewhat surprising to me with Indiana is how well the other guys outside of Halliburton and Siakam, how the other guys have paid attention to detail. Yes, they do. Paid attention to detail, if you will, the extra or the other details within the game, where Nembhard was being ballyhooed about his defense of Jalen Brunson, where he continued to fight and go over picks and not go under. So I think the finals, this series is going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a really good series. Again, I do, like I said in the beginning, I do like Sports Shots Pod. Thank you guys for tuning in. I do, again, let me write this down. I do, again, like I said, I do feel that Oklahoma City will win in the long run. Like again, I said, I'm not going to give you a pick of how many games. I think for me right now, I'm not going with any games. I'm just going to go with the winner and the loser because I can give you points and I could see how both teams could win. You could very much argue how both teams could win considering what they did in the playoffs and getting to the finals, semifinals, and now advancing to the finals. But again, I'm riding with the Thunder. Again, like I said, because I like that youth and I like that focus. When they decide that they want to be focused and they can get down and dirty, like I said, the offense for them is like nothing. Okay, I have no issues with their offense. I have no questions about their offense. But like I said, well, where I was impressed with that team as a unit was how they can buck down, get down and dirty, get focused, and play some tough D, some really tough D. That brings me to my next point of the day. So I don't know how much any of you watched or were on the internet this morning, but the story has finally come out in regards to the Knicks after a loss and Karl Anthony Towns and his defensive deficiencies. So, as we say that, I'm going to get to the article. I'm going to get to some things, but after someone brought this to my attention first thing this morning, and I had got wind of it, I didn't really hear a lot because I was in the car on my way to work, but I got to work and the conversation was had. There was a moment, and I did remember this. There was a moment where I saw OG Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns really, really somewhat getting into it on the sideline during one of those games, and to the point where Jalen Brunson had to step in and separate them and basically tell Cat to listen. Like he's not telling you anything wrong. He's telling you what we see. So, with that being said, all right, here we go. It's been reported the Knicks have expressed considerable concern about Karl Anthony Towns' defensive play. In particular, his defensive execution and communication, which has led which they believe has led to a decline in their defensive efficiency. His inability to execute coverages correctly and communicate why he is doing so. Also teammates having to be on high alert and cover for his lapses. So, before I get into some of the details of this one, when I first heard this, one of the first things I said, or one of the first things I thought was, oh, so they're not going to go back to what they used to talk about with Coach Thibodeau wearing down his stars, and then they don't have enough to complete the task when it needs to be. But then I thought again. I said, "Oh, so they're coming out with this." And like again, I saw it, but they're coming out with this, and now it's giving the impression that Karl Anthony Towns could be the scapegoat. So much to the point that I even saw in one of these articles that once you get stories like this, you get several articles. So I did some homework. I'm researching and I'm looking at some articles. All like I said, to the point where there were whispers of thoughts of trading him this summer. Well, we already know what the Knicks look like, right? The team that they showed up with in the semifinals this year, it is arguably going to be pretty much the exact same squad that they bring back next year if they run it back. They don't have much money to do anything unless they do make a trade. And again, with some of the stuff that they're in, they're kind of in the situation where the Sixers are. When I hear people talking trade Embiid or trade Paul George, they're in that same kind of situation where those contracts that these particular players have, not too many people, if anybody at all, is going to be willing to take that off of the table until it becomes an expiring contract. So, for the Sixers, it looks like we're going to be stuck with Paul George and whatever for a little bit, and that's a whole different story. But getting back to the New York Knicks and this debacle of sorts. And here they say is the more detailed look of what their concerns are. This is the Knicks and what the Knicks' concerns are. Okay. His defensive execution. He said he has struggled to effectively execute defensive schemes, often making errors in coverage and struggling to adapt to different offensive movements. Well, I've said for a long time that he was just a big individual, a big basketball player. Minnesota had him playing the 4 alongside Rudy Gobert for a little bit, but before Rudy got there, they had him listed as the center, as the 5. But he never really wants to play down in the low block. Excuse me. Richard says Thibodeau has 3 years left on the contract. Brunson isn't going to be the blame. So Cat is going to get, yeah, absolutely. That's why I said it looks like he's going to be the scapegoat. But again, if you think about it, when you read between the lines, they kind of picked a good scapegoat. Again, like I said, he claims himself to be the best shooting, 3-point shooting big man in the league, whatever that gets you. But I also felt like throughout his career, he never was one as a big to want to be willing to take that contact down in the paint. He always wanted to play on the perimeter. So I understand where they go, and this is defense, but I understand what they're doing. Reggie Miller kept bringing this to the point out, and like I said to some people, I said he kept playing in that drop defense where guys are there and he dropping in. So Indiana did what they were supposed to do. Those players recognized things that were going on. They stepped in and they hit those mid-range jump shots. You going to back up, or I'm going to stay here and shoot just 3, depending on where I'm at. If you're not going to step out, then I'm going to move in and I'm going to shoot this mid-range, a better shot, higher percentage shot for me. One of the things that I see from Oklahoma City and them going up against Indiana is they both can do that. But the difference is the defenses will be different. Okay. They say communication. His lack of communication with teammates has been a major issue as he doesn't effectively explain his defensive decisions, leading to inconsistencies and breakdowns in the team's defensive structure. So, we were taught play basketball when you're on defense. We were always taught you talk on D. I mean, of course, you're going to talk on offense, making sure people get in the right spots, whatever. But it's very imperative and it's very important that you talk on the defensive end. Because you have to be there to help your teammates out. Offense, you can see what's going on. On the defensive side, you have to communicate. And you have to be aware of what's going on to communicate correctly and effectively. His rim protection. He was never really a rim protector. So they say despite his height, Towns has not been a strong rim protector and has been exploited in one-on-one situations by opposing players. Joel Embiid kills him just about every time they play. Every time he plays him, Joel Embiid kills him. Because Joel Embiid will get in the box against him because he knows he doesn't want to be banged around there. So he'll take advantage of that and beat him there. But then Joel Embiid is a little bit more athletic at that same size as a big and can pull him out and go by him off the dribble. His help defense. His ability to help on defense has also been a concern, with some arguing that he overextends and loses track of other players, leading to easy baskets. So some of that going on. And then they're standing there and they look at each other like, "Oh, what's going on? What's the problem?" Yeah, but you know what the problem is. See, Rich says everybody has to see the same thing on defense. If one person doesn't, defense fails. Absolutely. And then when you don't have communication, that makes it that much worse. His impact on team defense. The Knicks' defense has been demonstrably better when Towns is on the bench, highlighting the negative impact his defensive struggles have had on the team's overall efficiency. Wow. Like, y'all didn't do your homework and realize this when you made the trade? A lot of this stuff that they're saying, and he didn't go to Duke, but this is just very similar, in my opinion, and in my thought process. It's similar to things that I said about Jahlil Okafor when he came out. I mean, I remember actually being at a game when Jahlil Okafor was here playing for the Sixers, and he got beat off the dribble or something on defense. And I'm sitting next to a guy, and the guy's like, "Yo, this guy stinks. He sucks." I said, "Well, he was never a good defensive player. It was always masked at Duke." He's like, "What do you mean he was masked?" I said, "Well, at Duke, in college, you play a lot more zone than you do in the NBA. So at Duke, all he had to do was run from rim to rim, from front of the rim, from front of one rim to the front of the other rim. That's all he had to do. When he got to defense, they could play zone. He had athleticism around him where he didn't have to do much. So again, you mask a lot of his defensive deficiencies. Player and coach frustration. Both players and coaches have openly expressed their frustration with Towns' defensive habits, particularly his inability to execute correctly and communicate his decisions. So in a nutshell, they're saying like they're sick of his crap and they don't understand what he's doing and what's going on. And he can't help. So they're frustrated, players and coaches. Players, I can understand a little bit more. I'm out there with you, dude. I don't know what you're doing. You're not helping us. You're not helping me at all. On the coach's side of that, I don't blame him for that, for the coaches being frustrated. Blame the coaches themselves for being frustrated, because if you see this stuff, it's your job to correct it. That's why you're a coach. The players will talk to him maybe, and in moments it's going to be some heavy conversation amongst the players. But as a coach, you're frustrated. You need to talk to this player and figure out what's going on, figure out what you as a unit need to do to fix it or begin to fix it. So coaches kind of failed there in that part. You brought that frustration on yourself by not doing your due diligence. Potential for trade. Some within the Knicks organization have advocated for trading Towns, viewing it as a necessary step to improve the team's defensive capabilities and overall roster balance. Well. That is that. So again, a lot of the players and coaches began to get frustrated with some of the things that he did or did not do or didn't do well. So again, like, you had to, in the back of your minds, think about some of these things or try to plan for some of these things. But apparently the Knicks did not do that. They made the trade for Karl Anthony Towns. They thought that it would be the move, the one piece that could help them get over the top. Now they didn't get over the top. So now we're looking at them, looking at themselves in the face and saying, oh, maybe now we realize we made a mistake. We didn't see what we thought we saw, or we didn't see everything that we needed to see. One of the two. It's something. But again, like I said, it's to the point now, and this is just the reports that the early reports that are out. To the point that some people are talking about trading. Now, how they could facilitate that, I really don't know, because the Knicks really don't have any leverage in a trade or anything like that. Yes, they are now using him as a scapegoat, Rich, absolutely. But it's your fault because you brought him in. So again, it tells me that you didn't do your proper research when you decided you wanted to make this move. So now you want to try and trade. You're talking about whispers about trading or whatever. It's going to be tough. Again, like I said, they don't have any leverage, right? When you talk about that, people talk about what the Sixers are doing, and I still don't think the Sixers are going to trade that third pick. I think they're going to pick somebody there. But anyway, the Sixers had a little bit of leverage because they got some draft capital they can use if they were to try to facilitate a trade or something like that. But again, like I said, the contracts that they have, nobody's going to take those contracts. All right now. So we can pretty much forget that. But on the Knicks side of things, they don't have that leverage. So even if they were to lose a couple people, it's going to be tough. They're going to have to sign like mid-level free agents. They don't have the money. And again, like my guy Rich said, it's Tibbs. They talk about Tibbs, but it's not going to be Jalen's fault. It's not going to be Jalen's fault. They're not going to put the blame on Jalen, so they're going to put it on Cat. And especially with national TV and national analysts talking about his deficiencies on defense. But again, I say, what were the coaches doing when you started to hear this? When you started to see this, what did you do to attempt to correct it? Apparently nothing, because it got to the point where you continued to be frustrated, and it just trickled down in a snowball effect, and it got down to the players as well. And then the players began to get frustrated as well. So what do you do now? Do you really sit down and consider or think about or talk about what you could do in a trade? Or do you think about something else? Do you get your coaches to get him to try and fix these deficiencies? And in a lot of ways, one could argue that he's been in the league for a while, so it's going to be pretty tough. It's that old cliche saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So what are they going to do? Second part of this is the Knicks' two stars can't play together and is forcing uncomfortable choices in the playoffs. So, they say Brunson and Towns, of course, they are the two best players on the Knicks. They are also both bad defenders. And the Knicks are learning that it's hard enough to get stops to win both of them, to stops to win when both of them are playing. So another thing that I said that I saw Indiana do versus the Knicks, and I said this, and this is nothing, taking nothing away from Jalen Brunson. He's a phenomenal player, of course, clutch player of the year. But when you have those types of players that do that type of damage, they're basically one-sided. You just heard it. They're both two poor defenders, bad defenders. So in the essence of that, you have to do what Nembhard and what's the other guy, Mathurin, were doing. They got physical with Jalen Brunson, but on the other end, they made him play defense. Okay, the Heat. I mean, not the Heat. The Hawks do the same thing with Trae Young because of his size, and we know most of the guards in the league are bigger now. But because of his size, whoever they're playing, there's always going to be a player who's not going to be a main focal point of the offense or whatever. Those are the types of players that the Trae Youngs, the Jalen Brunsons end up guarding because they don't have to spend a lot of energy. They don't have to focus a lot of energy on the defensive end. They can stay fresh for the offensive end. But this is how you combat that, and this is what I saw Indiana do. You make that player play defense, regardless if the person he's guarding is not in the focal point or a main focal point of the offense. You have to put him in it some type of way to make this particular player play defense on that end of the floor. It's basketball. Smart basketball. It's not what a lot of teams do, but it's what the Indiana Pacers did against the Knicks. So when you talk about this part of it, the two best players on the team allegedly, yeah, they did make him work on defense, absolutely. Two best players on the team, but the article starts out and says that they can't play together. So for me, that means that arguably for the entire summer, there's going to be a lot of chatter about thoughts coming out about a trade and if something can happen. Again, like I said, I think it's going to be very difficult because of that roster situation and that money situation. But the Knicks, and like people talk about the Sixers and what they're going to do. Like I said, I think the Sixers are going to keep that third pick. They're going to use it. Yeah, contract. He still got 4 years on the contract. Absolutely. So it's going to be tough to move it. So, they might be stuck with it. But what do they do? Again, it's tough because they got so much money tied up in players that they really shouldn't have tied money up into. Like they tied money up into Josh Hart. Once they made that adjustment, you kind of got not much of Josh Hart. When they made the adjustment in the starting lineup, what was that, game 4, game 5? And then he went to the bench and started coming off the bench. You didn't really see a lot of him. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one for the Knicks. A tough summer, a tough long summer for the Knicks because they're going to have to figure some things out. So when you look at that and then you say you can arguably compare them to what the Sixers are going through, Sixers are in a little bit better shape. I think Maxi's going to come back with a good year. I think Paul George is going to come back determined to have a good year. The question mark for me still is Joel Embiid. Where is his head going to be? How is he going to attack the beginning of the season? Because I'm sure he's probably not going to be ready at the very beginning. So, of course, again, we're used to this by now. Him missing some games early on. But I hope he can miss the games early on, get himself into shape, and then get in there again. But my ideal dream, I said this a while ago for the Sixers, and I said it to some people at work too. My ideal dream for the Sixers is based on the work ethic we saw from Tyrese Maxey since he's been in the league. The work ethic that we saw from Paul George, and this is going back to with that broken leg, how he got himself back into playing shape. They have the wherewithal, they have the decisiveness, and they can get it done. I was saying my ultimate dream is to hope that those two can get to Joel Embiid and those three be together in the offseason and all three of them get their bodies right and get some cohesion and get into training camp and be able to coexist on the court and show us what we thought we were going to see this year. Unfortunately, we couldn't because there was a ton of injuries. And again, yes, McCain, Rich says, I think McCain will have a really good season. Yeah, he was the leader for Rookie of the Year. And, I think, he learned early. This is the other thing I have issues with Joel Embiid. You didn't learn anything. You saw Jason Tatum got hurt. He went right and had the surgery a couple days later. Found out what it was. He had the surgery. Joel Embiid was going back and forth trying to find the right doctors. And I get it. You wanted to help your team. But certain times or at some times, you got to step away and do what you need to do. This is what everything that Kenyon Martin and all those other guys were saying on the Gilbert Arenas podcast too. But Jared McCain did that as well. He had the surgery early. So he should be ready by the beginning of the season. Question mark is going to be Joel Embiid. Will he be ready to go at the beginning of the season? I don't think he will be. But it would be great. It would be fantastic if he was ready to go at the beginning of the season. I would love to see that. I'm not 100% sure as to how it's going to play out, how it's going to continue. But we got to do something. Something's got to give. Right? Something has to give. So, folks, again, NBA Finals are set. Pacers, Thunder, in OKC kicking off that on Thursday. Stanley Cup Finals on Wednesday. Panthers and Oilers. All right. Tonight, Major League Baseball, the Rockies and the Marlins, the Angels and the Red Sox, the Brewers and the Reds, the Tigers and the White Sox, the Padres and the Giants, the Twins and the A's, and the Mets and the Dodgers. All right. On Tuesday, WNBA, you got Mystics Fever, Mercury Lynx, and Wings Storm. Folks, we are in this little conundrum right now that we like to call a dead spot in sports. But it is now June. July will be coming. And then we get into August and we have training camp. And then after that, we get September and then we get football. Football is coming. Just bear with us. Bear with the era that's going on. Bear with the time frame that's going on. Okay, Mighty. I'll give you a call. If I don't get, I'll give you a call when I get out of here. Definitely give you a call tomorrow afternoon sometime, and we will definitely talk. So, again, thank everybody for tuning in. Again, make sure you make note of the new stream, heat100radio.airtime.pro. Consistent music all day long. Phillies is not really, and Phillies kind of tore me up, man. Bryce Harper's out. He's expected to be back tomorrow. So we'll see what happens with the Phils. I'm definitely going to get down to a couple Phillies games, but Phillies had me going on that 9-game winning streak, and then they ran into the Brewers, and like that one game when they lost 17-7, and it kind of got, So definitely we'll talk some Phillies on the next go-round, but just wasn't really feeling it right now. Folks, be great on purpose. Like I said, make sure you get the new stream, heat100radio.airtime.pro. Music all day long. DJs, get your mixes into me. I posted it twice. I'm telling y'all now. Make sure you send those MP3 format. Send them to dsg2266@gmail.com. Okay? .com. So I can use the Google Drive and get your music played. Remember, it's internet radio, so it's worldwide. Yes, Rich, they did get their lunch handed. They got their lunch taken from them that day. And be great on purpose. As always, it's a nice day out. If you're on your way home, please take your time and make it home safely to your loved ones, or make it safely home to your host, to your home, if you don't have any loved ones there, if you are single or whatever. Again, you know where to find me. Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at SportsRap CEO. Make sure you check, the YouTube page, SportsRap TV. Make sure you do the 3 things you're supposed to do. Subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up on the videos that you like, and then hit that bell so you'll know when new content is uploaded. Also, the website, SportsRapRadio.com. Make sure you also get over to the Patreon page. We know the Dell is coming. Y'all know how we do it, Heat 100 Radio. You might be able to get some exclusive opportunities to win some tickets or some other stuff, some things or something. Patreon.com/SportsRap. Be great on purpose again, like I said, folks. And I will talk to you all week on social media and right back here next Monday. Peace.